Sorry, I'm Valdene Diprose. My work's called Holding It All Together, and I think the theme's pretty clear if you read the list of materials that's actually underneath in the didactic. So I thought I'd really talk to you a little bit about my practice and how that's kind of informing the work that's here, and give you a little bit of story about the family farm, which is really is the inspiration sitting behind this work. So basically, I always make narrative-based work. It took me a long time to realise that, but there's always a story or some event that's kind of triggered it, triggered the work I make. And it's often, I'm really interested in the notion of who we are and how memory informs us as people and makes our connections to other people. And basically, it's all about our connections to other people and also place and materials with which we, kind of live. I think they're all interconnected, and it's the kind of memory that's and the stories that are associated with that really form those strong connections. Sorry, I just need to put my glasses on. Okay, really a lot of my work is really based on personal memory, but family memory and that notion of community, collective memory that we all hold as a group around really important events and place. So, I'm also really interested in the memory that's actually you see the materiality of objects, the surface materiality of objects. And a lot of the time I work with indexical mark making, which, and for people who are not quite sure what that is, basically printmaking is an indexical mark where you put two surfaces together and the story of one transfers onto another, the piece you interact with. And I guess Rachel Whitehead's house was really a big version of that, if people are familiar with that. Okay, and also I'm very often work as a facilitator where I set up kind of circumstances and allow marks to happen using wind or water or whatever, and then accept that at those outcomes. And to some extent that piece on the left is that, because I've basically put down stuff and not really been able to control the process and just waited for the outcome. Now, the materials come from a particular farm, my family farm, which is 100 k's east of Albany, on the Southwest Highway, a place called Woolstead. And it was a really important kind of, basically, in our family, it's been the place of really significance. We got the land it's Minang Noongar land originally, but it was not open to for farming until the late 1960s or early 1960s because it was copper zinc deficient. And my dad got his allocation of a kind of block in 1962 and then did 26 round trips before 1970 across the Nullarbor with a truck and a trailer and a Fordson tractor on the back and cleared land and came back and worked in South Australia on the farm and then went back. And so I grew up with an absentee dad who I adored. So he was kind of very significant. And we all knew we were moving. So we came to this place knowing we were coming to this place, and I moved when I was 16, but it was always a forward-thinking, westward-looking kind of in our psyche from when we were very small children. And really, my dad was into the notion of the farming, being a farmer as a custodian of the land rather than the owner of the land. So you just look after it for a little while and then you hopefully pass it on in better heart than you began. And the notion, he left large land, parts of bushland on the farm for the roos and the brush-tailed wallabies, which sadly the foxes ate, and the wildflowers. So we've still got large tracts of uncleared land, bush on the land. Okay, so this really came out of that. And the fact that farming practices often kind of don't suit the country you're on. And we've got we've got clay-based but very fine sand, white sand on light grey sand. And basically Dad came over from South Australia with that notion of you do the 3-year cycle. You basically, crop, then you have you have feed, and then you have a fallow year, and which the soil is very exposed, and of course the wind just takes the soil in Wellstead. If you leave the land open, there's no grass or something to hold the fabric of the soil together. So this work's all about that. And I think if you read my artist statement, it's really a story of the last 5 years of farming. And the good news is that my brother is going to have an amazing year, because I think we're past the fact that the rain's kind of been quite steadily, and there's no more frost because it's getting too warm. So he's going to have an amazing crop this year. So it'll be a place to go at Christmas where there's a lot of good heart, because nothing's more depressing when you actually, spend more than $1 million putting a crop in and you don't even cover your costs, so that can be quite scary. I just thought I'd finish and show you, it's a bit hard with a microphone, but show you the process of making the tarp. It's a process I've been still playing with, but basically it starts off, and I started working on this process a couple of years ago, and it was just, I didn't know what I was doing, I just kind of made it up. So I started with Australian red gold, just staying, but then I built up, you can see the progressive layers of the ground coffee rock with wax moved in, and then it starts to get darker with the dirt and the charcoal. But it's quite problematic to control because you're grinding the rock and sieving it, and the dirt also. But it's quite problematic controlling the texture and the amount of wax and whatever. And I'm still coming to terms with it. And it's quite hard over a big area. I've managed to get it kind of quite neat looking, looking quite good in small areas, but big areas are quite tricky. And I was really inspired to do this I remember my dad having this old leather coat when we were kids that was all cracked and whatever, and it was about this colour. And I remember him wearing it, he'd wear it out in all sorts of weathers. And that's really what the inspiration for using the wax was.
Thank you, Valdene.